Oh, you go to church, you're going to go to heaven.
Yeah.
Oh, you're praying and you're following you're a Bible believing Christian, you have faith. Yeah, that guy's probably going to go to heaven. But I think that's a misconception.
Why is it that you've come into this wedding uninvited?
Okay, if you were given the choice between Kmart and or Anko as they call it, or Gucci, which one would you go for? Unless you literally had no idea. Hello and welcome to the Hopeless Podcast. My name is Delphia. I'm your host again this time. And joining us today is Jason and Joseph. And we have a very interesting topic. So, any guesses on what we're talking about?
The parable? Another parable?
It is another parable. Joseph, do you have any thoughts that maybe you know?
No, I'm quite keen, ready.
Yeah, no guesses. Okay, today's topic is the underdressed royal wedding guest.
The underdressed royal wedding guest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that title.
What do you think about it though? It seems kind of out there, not what you typically hear. What are your thoughts, Joseph, starting with you?
I think it's interesting and relevant, the title, because of the recent death of the Queen. I guess it can capture a new audience's attention, and the underdressed wedding guest. Yeah, and something about opposite of wedding is you're meant to be formal, but no, you're underdressed. So will you even get let in?
True.
Very
Yeah, I think
interesting.
people love to get dressed up for weddings. So okay, and I like it as well because it sort of rhymes, you know, the underdressed wedding guest. Yeah.
Yeah, as Joseph mentioned, with the recent passing of the Queen, it's a tragedy, and I guess a lot of us weren't expecting it, but may she rest in peace. Just side note, and respecting her as well. But let's dive right in. As Jason said, it is a parable that we're looking at. So, Joseph, do you want to go and lead us in with that by reading Matthew chapter 22, verses 1 to 14?
All right. And reading from the New King James Version, subtitle is The Parable of the Wedding Feast. And Jesus answered and spoke to them again by parables and said, "The kingdom of heaven is like a certain king who arranged a marriage for his son and sent out his servants to call those who were invited to the wedding. And they were not willing to come. And again, he sent out other servants, saying, 'Tell those who are invited, see, I've prepared my dinner, my oxen and fattened cattle are killed, and all things are ready. Come to the wedding.' But they made light of it and went their ways. One of his own farm, but made, and then one of his own farm, another to his business, and the rest seized his servants, treated them spitefully, and killed them. But when the king heard about it, he was furious, and he sent out his armies, destroyed those murderers, and burnt up the city. Then he said to his servant, 'The wedding is ready, but those who were invited were not worthy. Therefore, go into the highways, and as many as you find, invite to the wedding.' So those servants went out into the highways and gathered together all whom they found, but made both bad and good. And the wedding hall was filled with guests. But the king came in to see the guests. He saw a man there who did not have a wedding garment. So he said to them, 'Friend, how did you come in here without a wedding garment?' And he was speechless. Then the king said to his servants, 'Bind him hand and foot, take him away and cast him into the utter darkness. There will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. For many are called, but few are chosen.
Thank you so much, Joseph, for reading that.
Mm.
And I just want to get, like, I guess, our thoughts, just like reading the passage, and then what are your, like, first thoughts? Like, what jumps out to you as like, wow, I was not expecting that, or I've just seen something that I didn't see before. What, Jason, we'll start with you since Joseph read the passage.
Yeah, well, one thing I realized just straight off, just realizing that initially it didn't go out to everyone, you know. There was a specific sort of audience that it went out to. I would probably say the people that it went out to first was those who were actually chosen in a sense. They were chosen to be the first called to the wedding feast. So you can see there's some preferential treatment given to the people who were, initially called. So it's not like it's a broad thing for everyone. And that's one of the first things I sort of noticed that I've not really noticed that before. So who are these special people that were first called, and why is it that they were so sort of they treated the invite with contempt in a way. And then the second thing that sort of jumped out at me is the last bunch that was called, there were some good and some not so good people in there. I'm like, oh, okay, why you wanna invite those riffraffs? Do you know?
Yeah.
That's my first thought. Like, why do you want to invite those riffraffs? It was like, why invite bad people to your wedding? You know? That's the second thing that pops into my mind.
Awesome. I love those thoughts. Joseph, what did you get from reading that? What was some things that stood out to you?
Oh, there was a lot of things that stood out. First, Jesus spoke again unto them, saying in parables. So Jesus loves parables. So I think, like, if I was ever going to be a pastor or going to ministry or do some sort of outreach, I would like to be like Jesus and just, like, on the top of my head, just be like, hey, and there was a certain dude across the road from Northam. This is where I live, by the way. And he did this and that, and then people, when they hear my story, will be like, whoa, relatable, whoa, deep meaning. And other people who don't know about Northam is like, where's this place? But those who know, and those who doesn't. Anyway, getting off topic, but just want to pull up that Jesus spoke in parables again. And there was two groups of people. Who was the first group of people? Was the chosen people. So that could be a symbolic to something. I'll leave that for now, just like that. And there was a second group of people, because the first group of people just took it lightly. And then after that, it says the king. So who's this king? If a king of the wedding invited you, you should feel privileged. So there's that part. And then the king said to the person without the wedding garment, he didn't be like, oi, you across the room, you don't have a wedding garment. He just approached him and he said, hey, friend, how did you get in here without a wedding garment? So like, how merciful is that he didn't, like, pull him out and embarrass him in front of everyone in the town that was invited. And that's the other thing that I want to pull up is like, it's relatable to me, because when I had my 18th birthday party in Philippines, literally I invited the whole town. I didn't care if I knew, I didn't care if I didn't know you. I invited everyone from the high school, primary, high school. I invited literally friends of friends. If you know anyone, just tell them come down. Like, I can relate to the story so good. Like, I was like, oh, just come, just come.
Yeah.
And just like, yeah. And that's what I can relate is like, he invited everyone. And then the last bit, there's two bits of negatives in there, which is like, binded them hand and foot, and then thrown into utter darkness. That's kind of like harsh, some people might say. And also the other part where it says, but the king heard this and furious, and then he sent out his armies to destroy the group one people. That's kind of like, whoa, like a bit harsh there.
Yeah.
But then again, it summarizes like the full story by saying, for many are called, but few are chosen. Whoa, what is this big sentence, little sentence type meaning? So that's what I just want to summarize of what my thoughts were.
Okay, that's awesome. I love the points that you brought out there and how you find it relatable as well. I don't know. For me, whenever I've got an invitation to a wedding, it's just like I want to be a part of the bridal party. Like, even though I think, I was probably about 4 or 5 to the first wedding, I was invited, and it's just like, I want to be the fat girl, and nothing ever happened. But like, I don't know, that's my experience with weddings. But let's go. It says that there was a king who threw this wedding. Now going back to our royals, it's like, what if King Charles had invited like all the celebrities and like world rulers to Meghan and Harry's wedding?
Yeah.
And then those celebrities and country leaders had been like, nah. In fact, I'm going to even kill some of the people that you sent over to tell us. And now King Charles is like, look, celebrities and the posh people don't want to come. I'm going to go and just invite the citizens to come. So he invites the citizens, and they can all come. And what I also love, and what I found out of this story, and by going and reading it beforehand, is that it wasn't like it was a few weeks before and, no one's RSVP'd and said that they're coming. It was the very day of the wedding.
Okay.
Because he says, all the food has been prepared. The fatted calf has been killed. Everything. And then here comes, like, he goes to the second group of people and he's like, look, the food is now getting cold. Can you please come? And so I guess, like, I want to go and find it with how we can relate to it by using Meghan and Harry's wedding.
Yeah.
And it's like, now these commoners have come and they're gone and they're told, hey, look, you probably may not have money for clothes, so we're going to go and provide everyone with Gucci and Louis Vuitton so you look the part for a royal wedding. Now think about, okay, someone has decided they're going to wear their work clothes because they came straight from work to the wedding. Joseph, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I just want to just go off your point there, is that like the invitation was sent, they took it lightly, but then the king was like, let's just give them the benefit of the doubt and say they didn't receive it or so, but let's send out an invitation just to remind them again. So the point I just want to make is that God, Jesus, he's a God of second chances. So yeah, you might have messed up once in your life. Yeah, you might have done something wrong. That's totally unforgivable. Yeah, you might be like suffering in depression because of something, someone, or because of where you are presently or what has happened in your past. But that does not define you, and that God is a God of second chances and that he won't give up on you.
Well, that's pretty good. Can I just say as well, in relation to the king, you would sort of get the idea that, he wasn't much loved. Like, if King Charles, it's pretty hard to say that, King Charles, I'm so used to saying Prince Charles. Saying, if King Charles had sent that invite out, how many people would make excuses? Because this is what it sounds like when you're looking at this parable. It sounds like they're making excuses, just to get out of it. But what does excuses genuine? When you look at the the respect that the king should command, and this is sort of going the opposite direction, I suppose, what Joseph is saying, in that the king is the supreme ruler of whatever land he is, and he demands a certain kind of respect as a king. Hence why, if you decide to just go against the king, you could have your head chopped off. But maybe
Mm.
that king is a homicidal king, and likes to sort of chop people's head off or whatever it is, a bit like King Nebuchadnezzar. But in this sense, I suppose that the king has a right because his son, note this, right? His son is the
Mm.
one who's really been disrespected here, not so much him.
Mm.
And so when you disrespect the son, you disrespect the king.
Mm.
I just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, that's really interesting as well. And Joseph, you got another point that you wanted to make?
Yeah. I think this is all quite. I like Jesus. Like Jesus, my guy, cool dude, cool dude, cool dude. He's really good. Because like it's a double meaning, two-edged sword, double shield, Captain American shield. It's offense and defense
Hmm.
type type uh type
Mm.
thinking. So he's got this cool, amazing story. Even a child can be entertained by this story, but at the same time, those religious scholars can take this double meaning of like, oh, what does this mean? So, group one people, Israel, group two people, everyone. And then how it summarizes at the end that but many are called, few are chosen, and then send the invitations to the highways, to the byways, to everyone. It's kind of the story of life. And it's so amazing how Jesus can summarize that in just one simple story. But the more times you read it, when you go back and then forwards and then forwards and then back, you think you're in the same place where you started, but no, you've learned and you've actually gained ground. Yeah, that's what I just wanted to take away from that, but we can develop on that a little bit further.
Mm. Yeah, that's really interesting as well. Jason, you've got a thought as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to sort of jump off the thought that Joseph mentioned there about Israel being the first group of people. And I imagine the wedding invitation then would be the gospel invitation to come into unity with Christ and his bride, right? Come into the wedding feast. Because Christ is getting married. And that might sort of complicate the picture a little bit, because when we're looking at parable, we know it's not a direct thing that he's talking about. So he's not really directly talking about a wedding. He's talking about some kind of a event, right? That's going to take place on that particular day, and everything will be ready for that event.
What
But
is the event?
what is the event? You'll have to come back next episode. We'll, we'll talk about that in full detail. Oh, I believe that the event is the what's this thing that just happened? The coronation of the king in the city of London. No, sorry, Jerusalem. The New Jerusalem. Because we're told that in Revelation chapter 21 that we see the New Jerusalem coming down from heaven as a bride prepared for a husband.
Amen.
So here is the bride of Christ at New Jerusalem, and it's filled with all the people, all the wonderful people that he loves and he gave himself for. And there's going to be a coronation where him and the people and the city is going to be united in a forever bond, and so the invite goes out to the Jews, and I'm so thankful that they said no. Not because, not because they're like, a bit stupid or anything, but they were so preoccupied. They said no. And it was only because they said no that the invite was actually sent out to the rest of the riffraffs,
Yeah, but a
That
little disclaimer there is that
yeah.
Jews wasn't meant to be a separate people. That like we were meant to originally, that Jews, well, just name it that, Jews or Israelites were meant to be everyone.
Okay.
Like people make this statement where it's like, oh no, the 10 Commandments were only for the Jews. The 10 Commandments is only for the Canaan Israelites. So no, that 10 Commandments is for everyone. And when we make the statement Jews, when we make the statement Israelites, the original plan A was for everyone, but it just happened to be that Jesus is Jesus, that when he tells this story, it's telling what is real, what reality is going to be and what it is.
Okay.
That's interesting as well. I think I wanted to go and move on to, okay, so there was the two groups. We kind of discussed that a bit. What is this whole underdressed royal wedding guest part though?
Oh,
Because
yeah,
that was the actual topic. Like, okay, now we've gone and had a bit of like the backstory with like what happened, why now we're going and looking at an underdressed wedding guest.
So I'll just summarize that. So this is the second part of it. So the Jews rejected that, that invite. And then he goes out into the highways, the byways, the lame, the halt, the riffraffs. Now we're talking about the riffraffs, right? And one guy, well, again, a little bit of sort of cultural backstory again about, when a king in those days would invite people to a wedding, the king would provide both the invitation and the wedding garment. So the wedding garment came with the invitation. Look,
How
come to this
generous.
wedding. This is these days you get invited to a party. You guys probably don't get that. A themed party. Like, I'll be going to a 50th birthday party and they're like, I want you to dress in black and white and wear a cap or, white trainer or, black tie event. So it comes with a theme. And so this king would have sent out the wedding garment to go with the invite. And so even the riffraffs now, they get a chance to uh, dress up for the event. Maybe they don't normally dress up, possibly it's a new thing for them. You can expect the dignitaries to sort of dress up, but here they are actually given the wedding garment to dress up.
And that also reminds me how God says to us in Luke 14, verse 12, it says, and we'll be going to verse 14, it says, then Jesus said to his host, when you give a lunch or a dinner, do not invite your friends or your brothers or your relatives or your rich neighbors, for they will invite you back, and in this way you will be paid for what you did. When you give a feast, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, and the blind, and you will be blessed because they are not able to pay you back. God will repay you on the day the good people rise from the dead. And I think God here is just showing us that's exactly what I do. So I'm not asking you anything that I myself wouldn't do. Joseph, you had a thought?
Yeah, no, I agree with that point too. And then just another point I just want to pull out from there is that when he invited group 2 people, he said that it says he invited both the good and the bad. I think there's a misinterpretation. It's like, oh, you go to church, you're going to go to heaven. Oh, you're praying and you're following you're a Bible believing Christian, you have faith. Yeah, that guy's probably going to go to heaven. But I think that's a misconception because God invites literally everyone. Like everyone is invited, but there is a requirement. And when we say, why did the king bind this fellow? And he says, hey, friend, how did you get in here without a wedding garment? There is a requirement that you have to meet in order to get into the event. So yes, it's well, good and true that everyone is invited, but there is still a minimum requirement there. And it's not up for me as a Christian, as a person, as an individual to decide or to tell you who's listening that, oh, okay, you meet the minimum requirement. You said XYZ, Hail Marys, you read the Bible so much, you pray every day. It's not up for me to decide, but that's up for God to decide. And like, I love this podcast and this topic in this discussion because I just believe the Holy Spirit is leading here. But I just wanted to, just put that disclaimer in that what does the wedding garment mean? And if everyone's invited, why can't everyone just get in?
Yes. And can I just say, like, just on that, the garment was provided. Notice when the king came and spoke to this guy, he said, "How is it that you got into here without a wedding garment?" So the wedding garment was supposed to be the invitation, right?
Mm.
Then earlier I said that the wedding garment came with the invitation. The wedding garment is a sign that you've accepted that invitation. Now, if you didn't get an invitation, that means you didn't get a wedding garment. So how did this guy get in
Mm.
without a wedding garment? You know why? He's a gate crasher.
Mm.
I mean, have you ever gate crashed a wedding?
No.
No. Dude, there is this show, it's called, here we go again, the show thing, Wedding Crashers. It's actually quite funny. But in this sense, it was very serious because he was found out, right? And you know that word that he used in when he says friend, right? You notice the king came into and said friend. It's in the Greek, that word is heteros, which actually doesn't mean friend as in buddy, it means my friend, when you say my friend, let me, it's someone who is not really your friend, someone who's obviously on the wrong side, and you want to treat them as if, you don't want to arouse suspicion to everyone else. But what the king did was he went pretty close to this guy, and some people say this sort of gives credence to the doctrine of the investigative judgment, in that he went to investigate
Mm.
this guy and say, why is it that you've come into this wedding uninvited? How is it that you've got in here? And Jesus says, all those that that get in that way, who come over the wall, they're like that, like Satan, right? I'll have to find that quote for
Mm.
you. I'll have to find that quote. Um, I'll just give me a couple of seconds. Um, yeah, the thieves and the robbers, they come in over the wall, but there
Mm.
is a particular way to get in into a situation like that.
Yeah. And I think as well, as I said before, with if you compare it to like perhaps being invited to um Meghan Markle and Harry's wedding, like when it happened, it's like if they offered you Louis Vuitton or Gucci and you were
Mm.
wearing, for us in Australia, we wear like Kmart stuff. Um, okay, if you were given the choice between Kmart and or Anko as they call it, or Gucci, which one would you go for? Unless you literally had no idea of how good Gucci is. That's like the only time. So I think with us, um, I'm trying to find where it says it, but there's a particular verse which says that um, the robe, like robes in the Bible, represent like the goodness of God and like His righteousness, His right doing that clothes us. And it's like a lot of the time we're just like, no, I've got to like work and try and get into heaven by myself. And that's kind of like wearing your Kmart clothes to a wedding. Well,
Mm,
God's saying, hey, look, I have fabricated a amazing garment, amazing piece of clothing, amazing dress, suit, whatever, and I'm offering it to you. This is worth thousands of dollars. Okay, and that's what Christ's righteousness is for us. It is that amazing because like we can never, as these like little people on earth, ever attain to that level in and of ourselves.
Mm.
Because like,
yes.
look, one, I'm invited you to a royal wedding. Two, you're gonna get clothes that you would never ever have a chance to wear anywhere else. Like, and it's that I see that you're worthy, one, to be invited to my wedding, two, to wear these clothes. And then it's like, I'm not putting you as inferior on like another level. I'm bringing you up to where I want you to be. Jason,
Mm.
you had a thought?
Yeah, I just, I know we're wrapping up, but I just wanted to plug there that the how important this wedding garment is, and you cannot get in without it. And this is the righteousness that Christ gives to each and every one of us, free of charge.
Mm,
You didn't have to pay
yeah.
for this wedding garment. We don't have to pay for it. All we have to do is accept it. But the key is we cannot accept the wedding garment and not wear it.
Mm,
So we're looking at righteousness
Mm,
here, the righteousness by faith, but it's a righteousness by faith that is, I'm going to use a big word here, imputed. It's a righteousness by faith that, okay, we're given it in the sense that it's imparted to us,
mm,
right? But wearing it shows that we're actually living it, you know? And that's key
mm,
because when we're living it now, it's there for everyone to see. And this is kind of what
yeah.
distinguishes, the guests, and it distinguishes everyone who's considered to be part of that wedding feast. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. That's awesome. And I've loved this discussion that we've been able to have about the underdressed royal wedding guest. And I think it's time to go through our final thoughts because we are going a we're getting closer to stretching this out a bit too long. So we'll try and keep this to a short podcast. Joseph, what are your final thoughts wrapping up?
yeah. Well, I just wanted just to summarize, because I made quite kind of my points quite poignant and clear. Another thing that I wanted to mention is that when the king came to him and he says, "Friend, how did you come in here without a wedding garment?" And I've met some people when talking about Jesus, and they're like, "Oh, when I get to Jesus and when I see him one day, I'm gonna tell him this and that, and he was wrong about me because look at all these things that I've done." But no, this guy who says, "Oh, where's your wedding garment?" The guy who got into there was speechless. So literally, the point I want to make is that one judgment day comes, God would do every single thing in his power for you to turn away from your ways, and he'll give you every single opportunity, and he will be able to prove it and show that to you. So when
Mm,
judgment day comes, when you meet the crossroads, whether to go here or there, you will be speechless, and you will have nothing to say. So friend, that I just want to leave with this verse is like, for many are called but few are chosen. What does that mean to you?
mm,
Are you chosen?
mm. Thank you for that, Joseph. And Jason, what are your final thoughts?
Well, I've got quite a few. We didn't really touch on the binding, what does that mean, binding this guy head and foot, and why he was thrown into the outer darkness. What does that actually represent? But I just wanted to sort of finish with the judgment seat because this is ultimately what it's about. Okay, so we've been invited to this wedding between Christ and his bride, and we've been given the righteousness of Christ freely offered to us, and what we have to do is to wear it, put it on, basically. Um, but as Joseph said, there are misconceptions there about what the judgment is all about. And in Revelation chapter 20, verse 11, people always refer to this, the great white throne judgment. And he says, I saw a great white throne, and him that sat on it, from whose face the earth and the heaven fled away, and there was found no place for them. So
Mm,
imagine the earth and the heavens
Mm,
fled, fled from the face of him that sat on a great white throne. How do we think that we're going to stand before God, right? The creator of the universe, the ultimate power, the light, which is unapproachable, right? So blinding that we can go stand before God and argue our case. This is foolish thinking.
mm,
Just as
mm,
foolish as that guy who showed up to the wedding garment thinking that he's just going to blend in with everyone.
mm,
That's silly.
mm,
Um, and the only way that we can actually stand before God is if we're standing in the righteousness of Christ, standing covered by his blood, because we know that what
mm,
he did for us was he took that punishment that belonged to us, he took the death that belonged to us, and he has given us his life, his righteousness, his right standing with
mm,
God so that we can be saved. And I think, this is what I
mm,
get from it. And it's such a gift, such a beautiful gift. And if we refuse that gift, we're just as silly as that guy, and we deserve to be thrown out of that wedding for crashing the wedding. Yeah, those are my final.
Awesome. That was great, Jason. And thank you both for your participation. And this has been a very interesting episode. Just looking once again at the underdressed royal wedding guest. And I just want to make sure that you know, once again, that the invitation is still open, that you are still invited to this wedding feast, even if you think that you're the riffraff. Okay, the riffraff has been invited as well. So and as Joseph said, there are second chances for everyone. So God is really longing for you to be at the coronation of Christ, at the wedding feast of the Lamb, as it's called. And so it's your choice if you want to accept Christ today, because today's the day to send in, I'm coming. So that the numbers can be sorted and that everything can be finalized in God's great plan for humanity. So thank you guys for coming on. Thank you to our audience for going and listening to this podcast episode. And it's been absolutely great. This episode was sponsored by the Avon Valley SDA Church, and you can find more about them in the links below, and you can find this podcast and other episodes on all the major podcast platforms and on YouTube. Until next time, goodbye and God bless.
God bless.
Bye.